Well, let me go ahead and get started. And let's make sure I am sharing the right screen. Up. Teams, come back here. All right, you should all be seeing BricsCAD, the true alternative.
Yes, we do, Julie. All good.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn my camera off. We're going to start the presentation, and thank you all for attending. So, my name is Julie Kavarian. I will be your host today for our webinar, From Chaos to Control, How to Turn Your Old Drawings and Powerful Assets into Powerful Assets. And first of all, good morning, maybe good afternoon, and I don't know if anyone is a good evening, but thank you all for joining us today. Our agenda starts with an introduction to BricsCAD and BricsSys, and then we're going to provide tips and tricks and information on how you can turn your legacy CAD drawings into powerful CAD assets. How and what do I mean by that? Well, by making your content easily available to you and your colleagues with block libraries and standard libraries and templates. Now, before we start, just a few housekeeping items. Please mute your microphones, which I think they already are. And also, we're going to do a couple of poll questions, and there's already one in the chat. So if you go over to the chat, there's a question on if you're currently a BricsCAD customer or not. If you would kindly reply to that, and we're going to have a couple other questions. Also, during the presentation, if you have any questions about the presentation or about BricsSys, go ahead and put them in the chat as well. Craig Swearingen is our implementation specialist here in the Americas, and he's going to be monitoring and answering those questions. But of course, we will have time at the end of the presentation as well for any questions that you may not have, or that you may have, sorry.
Julie, I accidentally stole your screen if you want to share it again.
Oh, okay, no problem.
My bad.
Hey, it happens, right? We know it happens. All right, so let's see the chat. We can get a few responses. There we go. Okay. It looks like we're running a little bit more customers than not. That's great. Absolutely great. The poll does not show the question, somebody said. Ah, the question. That's interesting. Well, the question is, are you a current BricsCAD customer? And you may have to scroll up, Stephen. It's at the very top of the chat. Okay. All right. All right. Well, we'll go, if you wouldn't mind, for those of you that are customers, would you type into the chat what version of BricsCAD you're using? 23, 24, 25, just so we can get an idea of what you've got out there. Okay, at least one 25er, great. 23 light, perfect, thank you. Another 25, 25. Oh, great, lots of 25s. That's really good to hear. That's great. Okay, so let's continue. What is BricsCAD? Who is BricsSys? Well, BricsSys is the company. BricsCAD is our product, the true CAD alternative. All right, what does that mean? Well, BricsCAD, as some of you know, is a native DWG-based CAD solution, 2D and 3D, all in one platform. We've been around for over 20 years. We're proven, and we're also familiar. We're familiar because the UI is familiar, the commands are familiar, and that's really important because, as some of you know, that means it's a very short learning curve. Most AutoCAD users can be up and running in BricsCAD in a couple of hours or less. It's also familiar because we are AutoLisp capable, meaning that we run AutoLisp You can port all your existing list routines right over to BricsCAD, usually with none or very minor modifications. But don't stop there, because if you've done customizations, you can bring most of those over as well. Your blocks, your layers, styles, command aliases, even your printer setups, and of course your templates. What makes us a little bit different is that we develop DWG-based productivity tools on top of being very familiar. And that's really important, is to give you the tools to save you time and increase your productivity. And we continue to improve those tools as well. Let's talk about licensing. We offer flexible licensing. Do you prefer network or perpetual or subscription? We offer them all, so you choose what works best for you. And as some of your customers have already experienced, our pricing is typically about half of our main competitors. And your choice in licensing will apply to that a little bit. But all of this means that BricsCAD is a high value, high tech, professional DWG CAD solution. Who uses BricsCAD? Well, you can see some of the logos here. That's a mix of large companies, small companies in really all industries. And these are some of the words and nice quotes that they say about us. In general, they basically are saying that we do help them increase productivity, and it's a very familiar environment and easy to transition over to. So BricsCAD is made up of 5 different editions. We've got Light, which is for 2D work. We have Pro, which includes everything in Light, but adds 3D functionality and an expanded API. Oh, one thing I do want to mention is even with our Light product, we have full support for AutoList. So you can run your AutoList routines in BricsCAD Light. We do have a BIM product. Consider it kind of more of a CAD product with some BIM tools, and we have a mechanical product as well. Now, if you want everything, that would be BricsCAD Ultimate. And today we're focusing on Pro, but everything that I'm showing you in Pro, you can do in Light. So let's get into taming the CAD chaos. Does your CAD content feel like total chaos? Think about this. Is your content stored in a shared location that your team can all easily access? Or does each CAD user have their own, quote, secret stash of blocks and styles? Do you find yourself copying and pasting content from one drawing to another or from one project to another, and you can't remember which project it was in? Is there one person or a group that are responsible for keeping that content up to date and consistent? These are the questions that, as you answer them, could be hinting that you might be in the CAD chaos. Now, if you don't currently have Office standards, you might be wondering, why do you need them? Well, that previous slide, those are some of the reasons that you need a CAD or standards library. Now, a standards library can help organize your content. It can also help to prevent duplication of blocks and other content, because a centralized location is going to make it easier to share content across your organization. And that can help bring consistency to your drawings and do what we want to do today, get rid of some of that chaos. Now, you might be asking, well, what belongs in a standards library? Well, simply put, it's any of that content that is reused frequently or shared by multiple people. Think about those entities and elements that you use every day: blocks, line types, multi-leaders, text styles, dimension styles, table styles, all the styles, right? Page styles. If more than one person is using it, or if you find that you're recreating the same thing over and over because you can't remember where you stuck it in what file folder, and I'm very, very guilty of that, then that content probably deserves a spot in your standards library. So by centralizing the content, everyone on the team is working from the same playbook. Your CAD environment becomes cleaner, faster, and more reliable. You're saving time and you're taming that chaos. So today, we're going to show you how BricsCAD can help you take control of that chaos with smart, powerful tools that are designed to bring order to your work. You're going to see and learn practical tips and tricks to escape the clutter by taking and transforming your legacy drawings into organized, reusable content that works for you and your team. How? By building block libraries and standard libraries and templates. This will help centralize your most used content, making it easy to find, share, and maintain. So there's no more hunting around for that block that you created last week or last month. No more guessing which dimension style is the right one. Just clean, consistent CAD content at your fingertips. So let's do the other poll question right now. And that question is, do you currently have a standards library or a block library? Do you have things that are standardized or centralized for your team to work? So if we can do that poll. And yes, thank you, Craig. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions as well. Who's got the poll? There it is. Again, I don't know that we see the question, but the question is, do you currently have a standards library? Okay, so far it's 50-50. Okay, yes is eking out a little bit. Anybody else want to answer that? Even if you're not using BricsCAD, you're using another CAD application, you can feel free to answer this as well. Do you have a standards library? Okay, that's about, we've got yes, slightly edging out over no. All right, so.
Julie, we'll need you to share your screen again.
Thank you.
Something about those polls when they take control.
Yep. There, you got it. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. And that darn menu keeps popping
There
over.
we go. There we go. We're all good.
All right. So what's the first step to creating an office standards library? Well, first, we have to ensure that the data we start with is clean. And some of you may understand the phrase garbage in, garbage out. That definitely applies to our standards library, meaning you have to start with something good, because if not, if it's icky on the start, it's going to be icky and messy on the back end as well, unless we take the time to clean that up. So before we create a standards library, it's really essential to ensure that the drawings and the content we begin with are clean and optimized. What does that mean? Well, first, we need to understand what's in the drawing. And the Drawing Explorer organizes drawing content into groups like layers and styles for text, for dimensions, even page setups, and of course, blocks. Now, in this particular drawing, we've got quite a few block definitions with 0 block references. That means the blocks have not actually been inserted into the drawing. So let's take a closer look at some of the graphics in this drawing. And we're going to see in one of the pipes and one of the elbows, there are 2 overlapping lines. Only one is needed. Also, we have a very simple polyline. But although it's a very simple polyline, it has 6 vertices. Does it really need all 6? And we'll look at one other spot. We have 2 individual line segments that could very easily be joined into a single line. Now, these are examples of inefficient, or what I call messy, drafting practices. And while, of course, we could manually fix these issues, the real question is what else needs attention and how do we address it? And that's where BricsCAD's drawing health tools come in. These are powerful optimization features that help you clean up your drawings by purging unused objects, simplifying geometry, and removing duplicates. Now, here is a list of entities that could be purged from the drawing. BricsCAD lets you pick and choose what to purge and what to keep. Next up is simplify, and it does just that. In this case, this is that polyline that has the 6 vertices. So this is going to simplify that. And then overkill finds 51 duplicate entities, then fixes and removes that is unnecessary, keeping only what's needed. And you can see I'm going through some of those items we talked about before. There's the line segments. So I'm going to let BricsCAD go ahead and finish that for me. And under duplicate blocks, good news, there's only one. We can zoom to see each of the definitions so we can visually help us make our choice on which of those block definitions to keep, or we could let BricsCAD do that as well. Now, after running drawing health, the report is shown here. What's purged, what's simplified, what was removed as far as duplicates. The report can also be saved as a text file for documentation purposes. But now let's look graphically at the drawing again at the results. So remember, we first had a duplicate line, and now we can see that that's been replaced by just one. That polyline that had 6 vertices, now we can see that it's down to 4. And then finally, those 2 individual line segments have merged or been joined together into one clean segment. Now, why is this important? Because running drawing health ensures that your content is clean, efficient, ready for reuse. Remember, the content will be shared and reused across your team. So we want to start with those optimized drawings first, because that means we'll have fewer issues down the line when we copy and paste this maybe into other drawings or projects. Okay, the drawing's been cleaned up. Now it's time to organize the reusable content. And let's start with the blocks in this drawing to create a block library. BricsCAD offers multiple ways to create and manage block libraries. Now, option 1 is the library panel seen here. I've already defined the directory location where I want to store these blocks. But how do we populate the block library? We can do that with extract blocks. It automatically extracts the selected blocks to individual files. Now be sure to select the same folder that was defined in the library panel path. And once extracted, the blocks will appear in the library panel, ready to use after we generate the thumbnails. Then the panel will display each block as its own W block, and you can simply drag and drop the block into the drawing. Now, the library panel is specifically designed for managing blocks. Another option to manage content, you should consider using the Drawing Explorer. To use it, save a copy of your clean drawing to a designated Office Standards folder. This should be accessible to your team, right? And you'll want to name the file to clearly indicate what it contains. In this case, block content. That's going to help with organization and future reference. Then use the Folders tab in Drawing Explorer to add a local folder. And this local folder is your Office Standards folder. This setup allows you to browse and access drawings that are not currently open, making this an ideal solution for building and maintaining a standards library. Now, yes, I do still have the file open, but that is not necessary. You can simply select one or multiple blocks to copy into another open drawing, or simply right-click on a block to insert it directly. Now, a bit later, we're going to talk about how to use the Drawing Explorer for other style content as well. But we know that there's more to a standards library than just blocks. So let's talk about styles. Your legacy drawings are probably full of styles. The challenge, however, is identifying which ones are actually worth keeping and reusing. And just because something is labeled as, quote, standard, does not mean that it really is. So how do you know which styles to reuse Let's take a look. Let's dig into how to spot the keepers and again, leave the chaos behind. Now, many of us are probably guilty of editing the quote default standard styles, whether it's a text style, dimensions, or something else. In this example, this text is assigned to the standard style, but the style has been edited by changing the font. Here's why this is not a best practice. The default standard text style typically uses Arial as its font. Now, if someone changes that to a different font as seen here, it can cause issues when you copy geometry between drawings. Even though both drawings have a quote standard text style, they may be defined differently. The result? Unexpected changes in appearance of the text. The standard style in one drawing uses the Arial default font, the other one does not. So how do you avoid this? Well, create new styles for any customizations. Make all the changes in those new styles. Leave the default standard styles untouched. Now, if they've already been changed, you may need to restore the original quote standard style by replacing it again in your drawing, and then reassign text or dimensions or whatever to the new custom style. This approach keeps your content consistent and avoids those hidden pitfalls of modifying default styles. It's a simple step, but it's very important. And that step can save you and your team a lot of headaches and keep you out of the chaos. So we've built block libraries. We've started to organize our content. We're following best practices for maintaining those default standard styles. And we've got our standards library set up and accessible through the Drawing Explorer folders. What else do we need to do? We need to look at our templates. Templates are another key to making your standards reusable and consistent across projects. And it's really easy to create a template. So let's take a look. Start by creating a new drawing based on an existing template, and then simply copy over styles and content from your library into that new drawing, again by heading over to the Drawing Explorer. Copy content from your source drawings into that new file. Now, we didn't talk much about layers, but layers can be managed and therefore copied via the Drawing Explorer. Then go down the list. Copy your text styles, dimension styles, line types, leaders, table styles, page setups, anything else that you think is necessary to reuse. Now remember, the Drawing Explorer folders feature lets you mine data from unopened drawings, again, making it perfect for building your templates. I don't recommend putting a lot of blocks in your template files unless you are certain that those blocks will be used. Blocks are better left in their block libraries to be utilized as needed. That way you're not cluttering up your template file with unneeded content. It also ensures consistency by verifying that the default standard styles remain untouched and any customizations are saved under those new style names. Also consider creating multiple templates based on unit systems like metric versus imperial, or client-specific templates that may require a specific style requirement, maybe a different font used in the dimension style, or discipline-specific. Now, once your content's in place, you'll want to give your template a clear and descriptive name. And remember, a template file with the DWT extension is simply a drawing saved as a .dwt. You'll also want to be sure to avoid overriding BricsCAD's default templates, and you should decide where you want to store your custom templates. You can, of course, add them to BricsCAD's default template path, but if you do, make sure to keep a backup copy somewhere else. Alternatively, you can store these new templates in your standards library with the Drawing Explorer folders for easy access and version control. And here is the new template with our layers and our styles. All right, so here are some tips and tricks as you create your block libraries, your standard libraries, and your template files. Start with clean data by running it through Drawing Health. This might take you some time if you've got a lot of legacy drawings, but it's well worth it. Remember, if you start with the messy drawing, you're just copying that mess over and over again. So once it's clean, you want to reuse your existing and legacy drawings to build those standard libraries. Or as I tend to say, steal with pride. Don't reinvent the wheel. Reuse what you already have, because you probably do have a treasure trove of content in your legacy drawings. Now, of course, only reuse the data that you own. You can't steal somebody else's stuff. You can only use your own. And remember, creating and maintaining a standards library is a process. The library needs to be maintained by adding new content or possibly retiring older content. So after projects, you may want to perform a project review, lessons learned session to determine if any new content has been created. And if so, does it deserve a place in the library? Today, we looked at blocks and styles and templates, but don't stop there. Consider setting up layer standards as well. The goal is to define your most frequently used layers with consistent names, colors, line types, plot stuff, all that. Imagine starting a new drawing from a template that already includes the predefined layers. How much time could that save you? And more importantly, it ensures consistency across drawings and plotting. Speaking of plotting, don't forget to standardize those as well. Templates and standards work best when they cover all aspects of your workflow. And of course, this point is worth repeating. Leave the standard styles alone, right? Earlier, we saw what happens when the font in this quote standard text style was edited. It was no longer the quote standard style. So avoid that chaos. Don't change those standard styles. Back up your libraries and custom content outside of BricsCAD's default directory structure so you always have a clean copy available. And designate someone or a group to be responsible for maintaining and updating the library. If no one has that responsibility, then the libraries probably won't be maintained. Follow these steps to start taming the CAD chaos and bring order to your CAD work. All right, what's next? Well, if you're not yet using BricsCAD, you can download the free 30-day trial and take BricsCAD for a test drive. Now, this is a fully functioning version of BricsCAD. So let me just pop in we've got a QR code here for you. And let me pop that into the chat. And that's where you can download BricsCAD. If you are already a customer, or if you've done the trial, are you ready to purchase? So if you are, you can head over to the BricsCAD eStore. You can purchase online, and I've got a link for that as well. And finally, if you are already a customer, which I know we have a few, if you're not on 25, but it sounds like quite a few of you are, now is the time to upgrade to version 25. Why? Well, you'll get access to the next version of BricsCAD V26 when it's available later this year. So what's the easiest way to upgrade right now? Well, it's easiest, I think, is to go to your start page. On the right-hand side, you have Upgrade BricsCAD right under the Manage License. Click on that, and that's going to take you to our website. Scroll down a little bit, and you'll see this log in to check your options to upgrade. That's really taking you to your BricsCAD account. If you know how to access your BricsCAD account, you can do it that way as well. But that will show you what your options for upgrading are. Now, of course, we are going to reach out with more information about BricsCAD to all of you, and we will include a link to the recording of this session. But right now, do we have any questions, Craig?
No, Julie, we didn't have any questions, although I did think it was great bringing up the idea of not changing the standard font or the standards. Like it happens a lot, right? And you paste stuff in and you're looking
Yeah.
at it, wondering why it's different. That was a great thing to review. Absolutely.
Yeah, we run into that quite a bit. And it's a simple thing, but it has such a big impact on the ability to mess you up.
Yep. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So these are just a few tips and tricks. We see a lot of customers that struggle with this topic because they don't really have a way to corral all of this data and styles and content that they use over and over. And I struggle with it myself as I create demos and things. It's like, where was that thing? So it's something that I've personally been working on, is creating my own standards library.
In addition to the libraries, you can create tool palettes. That's another
Yes.
option to be able to
Yes.
access your repetitive entities that you want to use for project to project. So that's something else you could
Yeah.
look into as well.
And tool palettes give the ability to do some customization. If you have a block, for instance, and you know that that block always has to go on a certain layer, or you want it a certain color, or you can program that into the palette just by right-clicking and going into the properties. So there's, of course, lots of different things to use to create libraries, but we wanted to just point out some of these simple tools that can go a long way to helping get rid of some of that confusion and chaos. Anybody else? Last chance questions? All right. Well, thank you all for attending. We do appreciate your time. And like I said, download the trial. If you're ready to buy, you can buy online, or if you want to talk to us, we'll help you buy. And if you're a current customer and you're not on 25, again, think about an upgrade. All right. With that, we'll end it here and give you back some time into your day. Thanks again.
Thank you.